Next up, we have the CEO of Initator Pharma, Klaus Elsborg. The company is developing drugs against erectile dysfunction as well as other indications. Welcome, Klaus.
Thank you very much. Yeah, today I'm going to present Initator Pharma and some of the things that we do. So Initator Pharma is a safe neurotransmitter modulation company. We focus on central nervous diseases where there's a large unmet medical need, and we go in and we modulate with our compounds the monoamines in parts of the brain where it's needed. So we have two programs in clinical development, IPET 2015 and IP 2018, for erectile dysfunctions, for the non-responders to the current marketed treatment. We also now have added a new program to our clinical pipeline in neuropathic pain, more specifically trigeminal neuralgia. This program is called IPTN21, and it's also the same active pharmaceutical ingredient as we see in the IPET 2015 program, and I will tell you of the benefits of that later. So what is monoamines? Monoamines are really important signal molecules in the brain, in a part of the brain where we have these monomeric neurons that actually are sending signals by transmitting it through these molecules. Some of the most classical monoamines are dopamine, serotonin, norepinephrine, and these are involved in a number of phenotypes and physiological relevant functions, such as emotion, arousal, and some sorts of memory. Also, it's really important to understand that one monoamine is not reliable for one thing, so you cannot just increase the level of one monoamine and then get one specific response. It's the level of monoamines that are important. So when you modulate the monomeric system, you need to do it in a balanced and a safe way. And this is what we do in Initator Pharma with a new generation of proprietary drug molecules. Also, what's important to understand when we talk about the monomeric system is that this is actually a truly validated pathway for treating many different indications. There's been drugs on the market targeting various diseases through the monomeric system for a number of years. So not alone are we coming into a field where we want to treat patients, it is also a validated pathway. So we know that the mechanism works for treating a number of diseases. So what is the unique offering of Initator Pharma? In Initator Pharma, we have de-risked clinical assets. We have assets that already have been in patients, so we already have seen that they are safe. We have a highly experienced development team behind it who's been developing drugs for many years, and also who is competent in the many different levels of drug development. So we have the clinical trials that we are working with are relatively short. So, with a modest investment, we can actually reach multiple inflection points in these trials. And also we can see that the efficacy endpoints in the trials that we are working with are actually very well validated. So it means that we don't need to invent something new. It's actually something that's already established with the regulatory authorities. We also see that it's a very interesting and very advantageous risk-reward profile. As you can say again, we are working with a validated pathway, so we know what are the upsides and the downside of working with the monomeric system. And also we can see there is a potential to, now with the neuropathic pain, go into an orphan drug indication where we can get all the benefits of working with an orphan drug. So we are dedicated to developing novel and safe CNS targeting drugs. We still have full priority on our three clinical programs. So we have a clinical program for organic erectile dysfunction in partnership with MAC. We have filed the clinical trial application and we are waiting for the approval. We have the 2018 program in Psychogenic in an ongoing phase 2A. And then we are planning now to do the trigeminal neuralgia, starting out with a proof of principle trial in trigeminal neuralgia. So we are actually again saying we are working with full focus on all three clinical programs, and again we are targeting a validated pathway with proven efficacy. So what is it we are targeting? What is the market that we are targeting with the various programs we have? We know that more than 300 million men are suffering from erectile dysfunction, and about 30 to 40% of these men do not respond to standard of care. These groups can be split into two groups, what we call organic origin ED or psychogenic origin ED. We estimate that there could be a potential annual sales of $1 to $2.3 billion per year within the organic non-responders to the PDE5 inhibitors based on a premium pricing calculation. And for the psychogenic origin of ED, we anticipate as annual sales of $700 million to $1.9 billion per year. In the trigeminal neuralgia, which is an orphan drug indication, so that's a lot less patients than we see in the ED, we still estimate with the premium pricing we can get for such a drug will be between $500 million up to $1.4 billion. So it's very, very high value and very diversified markets that we are targeting with the clinical programs. And by having these 3 programs, we actually have multiple shots on goal to make it a commercial success. So why invest in Initator Pharma now? Because right now we are on the brink of starting delivering a lot of true value inflection points in the company. So as I said, we have filed the phase 2A application. We expect to get the approval, during the next couple of months, so we can actually start up the phase 2B trial in erectile dysfunction, in organic erectile dysfunction, in Q3 of this year, depending the COVID-19, of course. Also, we will get the completion of the phase 2A in IPED 2018, the psychogenic erectile dysfunction. Those data are coming out. And also, we will be able to initiate the proof of principle in pain study in healthy volunteers, which is part of the development for the neuropathic pain program. In the subsequent year, in 2022, we'll have the completion of the phase 2B study in organic erectile dysfunction. We have the completion of the proof of principle in pain, and also we'll have the completion of a MAD study for the IPTN 2021 compound, which is the same compound as we use in IPED 2015. And then, of course, we will have outlined the complete regulatory strategy for how to pursue the development into trigeminal neuralgia and move as fast as possible towards a market registration of this drug. So who's behind the team? Who is it that runs Initator Pharma? So today I would like to highlight a few of the people here. Magnus, the chairman, an MD from Sweden, has been involved in a multiple number of companies, is playing an active role in the board of Initator Pharma, and has been a member and chairman of the board ever since the company's inception. On the development side, I would like to highlight 2 people today, and that's Michael Thompson, the CDO of the company, who's the main driver behind all the clinical activities we have going on. He's the organizer, he's the guy who orchestrates all the different activities that we have, from the submission of the CTA filings all the way to conducting the clinical trials. He's getting good support from Allan Venert, who has more than 20 years of experience from Lundbeck as a VP, both in R&D and all the way to product launch with some of their products in the CNS area. So he's actually helping us, making sure that we are getting the right trial set up so we can get the right readout, so we actually have what the big pharma is looking for at the end when we need to go to the market. So right now we are actually announced that we had an ongoing financing of the company. We actually just got a 30 million SEK in a direct issue, and now we have a preferential rights issue ongoing for another 30 million. And actually this way we'll raise 60 million Swedish. There will actually be proceeds that will finance the total efforts of Initator Pharma well into 2023. So we expect the preferential rights issue to happen during the summer. We need to write a prospectus, and we are waiting the feedback from the regulatory authorities there. But it's important to mention that it's a fully guaranteed preferential issues by the investors that will come to now. So we actually got a really, really strong syndicate of investors to support Initator Pharma. We actually been working with large shareholder space ever since we started the company, and now we actually get 2 cornerstone investors to complement our retail investor community. We're getting Link in, which is a really strong investor in the life science field, and we're getting the institutional and Rodrigo coming in, supporting the company going forward. And we think this is, for the first time in Initator, we have a good runway, so we can actually do the clinical development and the business development in the right manner. So this is really strong, and this looks good for the future of Initator Pharma. So just expanding the pipeline, just a little bit on the pain that we are looking at. So neuropathic pain. So what we are looking at here, we know that monoamines play an important role in various forms of pain. We know that targeting monoamines, you can actually treat a lot of these pain symptoms. An example is the monoamine modulator called duloxetine. It was developed by Eli Lilly, sold for more than $4 billion at their last year of patent life. Is actually providing good pain relief in some indications. However, there's a lot of safety concerns with this compound as well. We see that there's an FDA black box warning on this compound, increased risk of suicide, sexual problems, and liver tox. With the IP-TN2021 program, we actually have a drug candidate that differentiates from duloxetine and will change the safety and efficacy paradox. So we are again developing proprietary and safe molecules to modulate the monoamine levels. Trigeminal neuralgia, the indication that we are looking to go in and position our drug for, is a rare disease. It's a pain, it's a stroke of pain going down through your face, down through your trigeminal nerve over your face. It comes like an extremely painful lightning bolt. It can come sometimes, it will last for 2 seconds. You can be hit by 20 or 100 attacks per day, or it can be a more general pain level all through the day. It can also often be provoked by touching, putting on makeup, and things like this. It's actually so painful that people often mention it as a suicidal pain. So it actually really, and also a lot of the patients are getting depressed simply by the risk of fearing the next attack. We see that it targets about 13 out of 100,000. We see it's twice as common in females above the age of 50. So you can split it up into 2 groups, the treatments that are there. You can either go in and you can do a surgery, and you can do that in the patients where you can see what is actually provoking the nerve. So if something is touching the nerve, a blood vessel or a tumor, those you can go in and do a procedure so you can kind of decompress the area of the nerve. Often we see that a lot of the patients that undergo these invasive surgeries actually have a relapse of the pain coming back, and also there's a lot of side effects, numbness of the face and so on. But in the part of the patients where we cannot see the direct cause of the pain, the idiopathic patient segment are often treated with pharmacological therapy. And here the only FDA-approved drug is carbamazepine. Carbamazepine is an anticonvulsant that has a long list of side effects that is not desirable, but so far this is the only thing approved by the FDA. We can see that most of the patients are actually using other tablets on top of carbamazepine because it's not working efficiently enough. So there is a huge unmet need for new things, and we can see that our drug candidate fits very well into this space, and that's why we want to pursue this. So the way we want to develop this drug is we want to do a proof of principle study in healthy volunteers where we inflict pain, so then we can see that we have efficacy. We want to do that at various doses and with a benchmark. Then we will take it into a MAD study, so MAD study multiple dosing, where we'll actually be allowed to give it the compound for longer. So far we are only doing on-demand single dosing for ED. And then we will follow up with a patient trial in trigeminal neuralgia. This latter part is not fully fixed yet, but we have an ongoing discussion with the regular authorities how we can actually improve the trial design and get the best possible efficacy readout. And for this, we're actually collaborating with Frank Sesonowski in the US, who's actually a clinical expert with the FDA on understanding how to build and how to design trials in various indications. He's especially a specialist in orphan drug indications, and he's been working there for many, many years. And he also, out of the last 8 FDA accelerated approvals, he actually were leading 6 of them. So just briefly at the end on erectile dysfunction, which is still a big focus of Initator Pharma. There's many patients here, and we see an increasing number of the patients do not respond to standard of care. So what is it again, just to understand erectile dysfunction? We know erection is driven by stimulation. You see something nice, you're being touched, you remember something nice, and that actually leads to a release of dopamine in the brain. The dopamine is then driving through a process where you get a dilation of the arteries, getting increased blood flow to the penile tissue, and then you get the erection. Our compound is actually going and strengthening this by actually, making sure that the dopamine is present longer in the cleft between the neuron and the postsynaptic receptor, so we get an even stronger erection response upon stimulation. So what is it we're looking at the patients that do not respond? Well, we have a group of patients, about 30 to 40% that do not respond to the current treatment. We know in some segments, so for example, people suffering from diabetes, we know that this is even larger, up to 50% not responding to the current treatment. So for these, there is no treatment, and these are the patients we want to target with our 2 candidates, IPET 2015 and IPET 2018. So just briefly on the 2015, organic erectile dysfunction, you can say that's happening to us when we go older. The system gets less responsible to the stimulation. And also here you can see that this is simply by the system is not as responsive as it used to be. Here we are positioning 2015 as the drug candidate to go forward. We have done a phase 2A trial, where we included 12 patients, where we go in and we measure erection on these patients by having a regiscan on their penis, show them an erotic movie, and then we can measure the erection of the penis. So in this study, you can say it's a fairly small study, but actually what we measured here, that 25% of the patients actually respond to the visual stimulation. And this made us super excited, because here we actually can see for the first time that our drug actually can increase the erection in men suffering from erectile dysfunction that do not respond to the normal PD-5 inhibitors. Actually, the data was so good that we actually managed to construct a deal together with Mac, who's been doing the clinical trials for us. And actually they invested in the company, so they actually go in and they will take part of the clinical cost at running the cost at the Mac clinic, and that will be up to 23 million Swedish crowns, which they will convert into shares upon the completion of the trial at a 70% premium to the share price when we made the deal with them. So this is a true validation of our results. What we are doing now, we filed the phase 2B, so the phase 2B will include 120 patients. We filed that application with the regulatory authorities, and we will come back to the market when that is approved and give more detail on the final design. But we are looking to, on the trajectory, to complete the active part of this study at the end of 2022, so next year. Briefly on the last project, the IPED 2018, the psychogenic erectile dysfunction. Again, here we're talking about a different form of erectile dysfunction. Here it's not so much being the age that's driving the ED, it's actually other causes like stress, depression, low self-esteem, or the use of antidepressants. So here you can say that even though it's ED at the end, it's very differentiated to the organic erectile dysfunction. Here we have an ongoing phase 2A study where we actually have a 3-way crossover at 2 dose levels in a phase 2A, same design as we did for the 2015 program, where we actually show an erotic movie and we measure the erection. And we expect to complete that study later this year. So multiple upcoming value inflection points, as I mentioned before, is that we're going to have the approval for the phase 2B protocol. We're going to start the phase 2B study. We're going to get the readout of the 2018 program in psychogenic ED, and then we're going to start the pain proof of principle study. So come join Initator Pharma in our quest to make better and safer drugs for patients worldwide. Thank you.
Well, thank you so much for that presentation. First of all, it's very interesting what you're doing. I think the connection between erectile dysfunction and neuropathic pain, for example, that's an interesting connection, and depression as well. You mentioned that. But I wanted to start by asking you if you could guide our viewers through the most important milestones for the company in 2020 and also the beginning of 2021.
Yeah. So I think that, as I mentioned, I think that now with the we submitted the application for the phase 2B trial for organic erectile dysfunction for 2015. It's going to be huge getting that one started. We are really happy that we made a good collaboration with a partnership with Mac on this, so they actually take care of the cost of the clinical expenses, so whatever they do in their clinic. So this is really good for us, and we, that trial is going to read out end of next year, or we're going to finish the active dosing end of next year, and that's going to be, a life-changing moment for Initator Pharma, because that's a true phase 2B with 120 patients included. On top of that, we have the readout of the psychogenic erectile dysfunction trial, a compound that I have very high hopes for. In the preclinical models, it was super strong efficacy with the 2018 compound, and we want to see this translate into efficacy in patients as well. And then with the new program that we brought in money for, the neuropathic pain, you can say that now suddenly we're changing away from being just an erectile dysfunction company. We're actually changing into becoming a CNS company focused on modulating the monoamines. And we know that the 2015 compound that we are using for trigeminal neuralgia is a super safe compound. It has a really good safety profile and has good efficacy in the preclinical models of pain. So we think that this is a good position to be in. We have one compound we know is safe, positioning for various indications, and see where we get the best results. So all this is really, really strong, and I look forward to the upcoming months and year here. Mm-hmm. Yeah,
well, it's I think it's interesting that you're going into more of a CNS indication, let's say. And I'm actually wondering, out of curiosity, do you see in the future going into other indications, CNS indications, for example?
Yeah, I think that we are always very opportunistic. So we have continuous looking out for projects that kind of matches the criteria that we want to bring in. We want something that is safe. That's the foremost and most important thing. So we actually like to look at programs that's already been in the clinic and that we have seen being dosed, like the 2018 program that came out of a phase 1 study from neurosurgeon Saniona back in the day. So we know that when we give the compound, we don't have the risk. We're trying to de-risk the program as much as possible by saying something that is safe. So I would definitely say that we are opportunistic on going out and looking at other indications. There's multiple indications, as I said in the beginning, that where monoamines plays a really important role. And if we can see that there's the right play for some of our compounds or compounds out in the market, we will definitely consider that.
Mm-hmm. Well, going back to erectile dysfunction, that disorder in particular affects about 150 million men globally. And the figure is expected to increase twofold by 2025.
Yeah.
How does this affect the market value for your candidates?
I think it's, of course, this is really good for, you see an increasing number of patients in need. Mm-hmm. So you can say that we see that 30 to 40% of the existing population do not respond. But we know what's happening. People are getting older and people are also getting, more and more lifestyle diseases. So cardiovascular problems, overweight, and so on. And these are actually really important parameters when you look at the non-responders. Mm-hmm. So you can say that, so we anticipate that our share would be even larger. So more people will not respond to the PDE5 inhibitors, making even more attractive commercial opportunity for us. So we definitely see that. And we can also see in the literature now that people are actually staying active sexual for longer. Mm-hmm. So, before when you 10, 20, 15 years ago, when you turned 50, that was kind of the end. Now we see in Portugal, Denmark, Sweden, and the Benelux countries, we see people, very active up into the late 70s, even into the 80s. And of course, these men are going to have a greater chance of having ED. So that will definitely also increase the market in general.
Well, finally, last question. What will be your main focus for this year?
I think that the main focus is the clinical development that we are working on now. We are really focused on getting these trials conducted in the best possible way, making sure we maintain the high standard of getting the right patients in so we get a result that is meaningful. Just like we did with the phase 2A results coming out of the 2015, there's something that actually can facilitate that we can continue our discussions with Big Pharma and move the programs forward. Then, of course, we have a pipeline of other drug candidates in the discovery phase. We would still like to, spend a little bit of time on them, trying to see what we can use them for. And I think that also we will make some progress there in the coming year. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Great. Well, thanks so much for joining us today and giving the presentation. And we look forward to following you in the coming months.
Thank you very much, and thank you for all the questions.